Tropical activity across northern Australia, multiple systems to watch, heavy rainfall locked in for some areas. That's what we are looking at over the next 10 days. Right now across northern Queensland, conditions are still dealing with the aftermath of ex-tropical Cyclone Koji. Mount Isa and areas to the north have been copping persistent thunderstorms. Nothing extreme in terms of individual falls, but when you've already got saturated catchments, even 50 millimetres becomes a problem. And that's exactly the situation we're refacing. Out in the Coral Sea, we've got tropical low 14U tracking northeast towards Vanuatu. That system S expected to intensify into a tropical cyclone near New Caledonia early next week. But here is the key point. Impacts on Queensland are not expected. The system S going to stay well offshore, more than 1,500 kilometres northeast of Rockhampton at its closest approach. The more interesting story, and the one that affects far more Queenslanders, is what happens between now and Australia Day. We've got multiple areas of potential development, one in the Coral Sea around the 20th to 25th of January, possibly another forming in the Gulf of Carpentaria. And out west, there is signals for development near the Western Australian border. But let's start with what is happening right now, because the flooding situation across northwestern Queensland is significant. The remnants of Koji are currently about 150 kilometres north of Mount Isa, tracking northwest. Throughout today, areas north of Mount Isa have seen falls between 30 and 80 millimetres. Not catastrophic numbers on their own, but this region has already received significant rainfall since Boxing Day. The ground is saturated, river systems are swollen, some areas are experiencing moderate to major flooding. I've been monitoring the webcam footage from across central Queensland. The Blackwater Reservoir right now, there's a road that runs underneath where you are seeing water. A 100 series Land Cruiser was crossing through there a few days ago in what looked like reasonable conditions. Today, it's completely underwater. That gives you an idea of how much water is moving through this part of Queensland. Up at Julia Creek, water levels are finally starting to drop. You can see more of the flood marker compared to 24 hours ago. Low tides in the Gulf are helping drain some of the floodwaters out of northwestern Queensland. But here's the concern. When you've got this much water on the ground, another 50 millimetres sends it straight back up to major flood levels. Even small amounts of rain become problematic. The good news is the rainfall associated with Koji S remnants should clear out by Friday. We're re-looking at a couple more rounds of afternoon thunderstorms today into tomorrow. Then the activity shifts west into the Northern Territory. By the weekend, rainfall across northwestern Queensland becomes coastal based. Scattered showers, isolated storms, nothing significant inland. That gives these river systems time to drop. The Flinders River, the Norman River, these catchments need a break. They're re-getting one, at least for now. Now let's talk about what is developing in the Coral Sea, because there's been some confusion about this system. Tropical low 14U is currently west of New Caledonia, tracking northeast. By this weekend, it gets jammed up against Vanuatu before turning back towards New Caledonia. Somewhere between Monday the 19th and Wednesday the 21st of January, tropical cyclone genesis becomes likely. We could see a weak to moderate tropical cyclone impact New Caledonia with heavy rainfall. The question I am seeing in comments and messages, will this affect Queensland? At this stage, no. The system stays well offshore. And here is why. The jet stream. When you look at the upper level winds, the jet stream is still blowing quite strong through the middle parts of Australia. It weakened off a little over Queensland, which is why Koji was able to track so far south for this time of year. Typically, Queensland tropical cyclones are a risk from February onwards. Seeing a cyclone outside of far northern Queensland in January is unusual, but that jet stream is still strong enough to keep 14U well offshore. The steering flow doesn't support a track towards the Queensland coast, so for those on the coast from Cairns down to the Sunshine Coast, this particular system is not your concern. What is potentially a concern is what develops later in January. Between the 20th and 25th of January, somewhere in the Coral Sea, we're likely to see another area of low pressure develop. This one is different. This one forms closer to the coast. This one has the potential to bring significant rainfall to northern and far northern Queensland. Now, I want to be very clear about this. We're not looking at tropical cyclone development. The forecast models are not supporting a strong tropical cyclone. What we're looking at is a broad monsoonal low pressure system, possibly a rainfall depression, the kind of system that doesn't produce destructive winds, but can absolutely dump rainfall. If you are in Cairns, Townsville, the Atherton Tablelands, this is worth paying attention to. Not because you need to be preparing for cyclone conditions, but because you may need to be preparing for heavy rainfall. And given we are approaching the end of January, the ground across far northern Queensland is already wet, the catchments are primed, significant rainfall could lead to flooding. The models are still working out the details, where exactly this develops, how strong it becomes, how much rainfall it produces, that's all still being resolved. But the signal is there. Something is likely to develop in the Coral Sea in the last week of January. For those in far northern Queensland, especially if you are in flood-prone areas, this is one to monitor. Not panic over, monitor. And here is something interesting. February is starting to look active. There are signals in the forecast modelling for potential tropical cyclone development in the Coral Sea in early February. We're talking very long range here, so things will change. But it is worth noting, if you've got plans for early February, if you are travelling, if you've got work scheduled in remote areas, keep an eye on the tropics. Now, let's talk about Darwin and the top end, because that S where things get interesting. The remnants of tropical Cyclone Koji are tracking northwest into the Northern Territory. This weekend, around Darwin, those remnants interact with the monsoon trough. And when that happens, we're relooking at significant rainfall. The European forecast model is showing 4-day rainfall accumulations between 600 and 700 millimetres in some pockets. Adelaide River, Bachelor, areas south of Darwin, those are massive rainfall totals. Now, the top end can handle rain. 500 millimetres in a couple of days, that S wet season, that S not unusual, but we're talking about potential totals exceeding that. Flood watches will be issued. Some areas will experience flooding, roads will be cut. If you're in the Darwin area this weekend, you need to be prepared for heavy rainfall and the disruptions that come with it. Here, S, where it gets complicated. After this system stalls around Darwin for a few days, Saturday through Monday, it has options. It can track west into the Indian Ocean, or it can make a U-turn back towards Queensland. Right now, the forecast models are split. If it tracks west, we could see another tropical low develop near the Western Australian border. If it tracks back east, it could interact with that Coral Sea system I mentioned earlier, potentially enhancing rainfall across the Gulf of Carpentaria. The steering flow right now suggests it might track west into the Indian Ocean, potentially affecting the Kimberley region with heavy rainfall, but the monsoon is strong. Very strong. And when you've got a strong monsoon burst like this, systems can behave unpredictably. The monsoon flow could push Koji S remnants back towards Queensland instead. For those in the Gulf country, Cape York, this is something to monitor. If Koji S remnants do track back east, combined with that late January Coral Sea development, you could be looking at significant rainfall across far northern Queensland. Now, I know this sounds complicated. Multiple systems, multiple scenarios, things that might develop, things that might not. Welcome to the tropics in an active pattern. This is what happens when the monsoon is firing. Let me simplify it. Northwestern Queensland, the worst is over. Flooding concerns remain, but new rainfall should ease off by Friday. River levels will start dropping. You are getting a break. Far northern Queensland, watch the last week of January. Potential for a monsoonal low in the Coral Sea, bringing heavy rainfall. Not a cyclone threat, a rainfall threat. Darwin and the top end, heavy rainfall locked in for this weekend. Potentially very heavy in some areas. Prepare for flooding, road closures, the usual wet season disruptions. Gulf country and Cape York, monitor the situation. Depending on where Koji S remnants track, you could see significant rainfall late in January. Tropical cyclone risk, low for the next 10 days across all of northern Australia. When you've got a strong monsoon, you typically see rainfall threats rather than cyclone threats. Can monsoon lows intensify into cyclones? Yes. Is it likely in the next 10 days? No. February onwards, the signals are there for a more active cyclone season. Early February in particular is showing some interesting patterns in the Coral Sea. If you are in Queensland, don't put the cyclone preparation guide away just yet. Now let's talk about what you should be doing, because forecast information is only useful if you act on it. If you're in northwestern Queensland, particularly around the Flinders and Norman River catchments, you've been dealing with flooding for weeks now. Water levels are starting to drop, which is good news, but your focus needs to be on recovery and preparation for the next system. Check your property. Clear debris from drains and gutters. If you've got stock in low-lying areas, move them to higher ground. This break in the weather is your window to get organised. For those in far northern Queensland, you've got time. We're re-talking about potential development in the last week of January, but now is the time to check your preparation. If you are in a flood-prone area, review your plan. Where will you go if you need to evacuate? What supplies do you need? Don't to wait until the system is on your doorstep. Darwin and the top end, you need to be preparing now. This weekend, rainfall is locked in. Stock up on essentials today or tomorrow. If you are in a low-lying area, have a plan. If you are travelling, check road conditions before you leave. The Northern Territory Emergency Service will be issuing warnings as we get closer. Pay attention to them. If you are planning to travel across Northern Australia in the next 2 weeks, monitor the situation daily. Roads can be cut with little notice. If you are heading into remote areas, tell someone your plans, carry extra supplies, a satellite phone or emergency beacon if you've got one. For those with livestock, far northern Queensland in particular, if heavy rainfall does eventuate late in January, you need to be prepared. Check your fences, make sure stock have access to high ground. If you are in low-lying areas, consider moving stock now rather than waiting. I want to address something I am seeing in the comments and messages. Some people are frustrated with long-range forecasts. Fair enough. When you're re-looking 10 days out, especially in the tropics, there is uncertainty. Models change, systems develop differently than expected. I get it. But here's why I discuss these long-range patterns. Preparation takes time. If I wait until a system is 3 days out to mention it, you've lost your window to prepare properly. You're re-rushing to the shops with everyone else. You're re-making decisions under pressure. By giving you this information now, with appropriate caveats about uncertainty, you've got time. You can prepare methodically. You can monitor the situation as it develops. You can make informed decisions. Yes, the forecast will change. Yes, some of these systems might not develop as expected, but you'll be prepared either way. And in the tropics, that what matters. One more point, this pattern we are seeing active monsoon, multiple areas of development, significant rainfall. This is typical for late January into February. This is cyclone season. This is the wet season. If you live in Northern Australia, this is what you signed up for. The difference this year is the monsoon is particularly strong. Sea surface temperatures are warm. The Madden-Julian oscillation is in a favourable phase for tropical development. All the ingredients are there for an active period. That doesn't mean panic. It means pay attention. Check the Bureau of Meteorology daily. They your authoritative source for warnings and watches. Follow your local emergency services on social media. They all provide specific advice for your area. And if they issue a warning, take it seriously. Many of you have been through cyclones before. You remember Tracy, you remember Yasi, you remember Larry. You know what preparation looks like. You know what serious weather looks like. Use that experience. But don't let it make you complacent. Every system is different. Every situation requires assessment. For those in far northern Queensland who felt isolated during the lead up to Koji, I hear you. Remote areas, limited information, that is a genuine concern. That SY monitoring forecast like this matters. You need time to prepare. You need information to make decisions. The forecast will continue to evolve over the next week. I'll be providing updates as we get closer to these developments. If significant changes occur, if systems intensify unexpectedly, if tracks shift, you'll hear about it. For now, the key points. Northwestern Queensland, you're getting a break in the weather. Darwin and the top end, heavy rainfall this weekend. Far northern Queensland, monitor late January for potential heavy rainfall. And everyone across Northern Australia, February is looking active. Don T, pack away your cyclone kit just yet. The tropics are firing, the monsoon is strong, multiple systems are developing or likely to develop. This is weather that deserves attention, not panic, attention. Stay informed, stay prepared, and look after your mates. If you've got elderly neighbours, check in on them. If you've got friends in remote areas, make sure they're aware of what's coming. If you've got stock, check them regularly. This is Northern Australia in the wet season. This is what we do. We watch the weather, we prepare properly, and we look after each other. That's the forecast. Monitor the situation. Check the Bureau of Meteorology for official warnings. And if you've got questions or concerns, the emergency services in your area